Good morning. Today is December 22nd, 2014. The time is 9:14. We are on the record. I'm Louis Susi, the videographer. Our court reporter is Dicey Etchison. We are here in San Antonio, Texas for the deposition of Mr. Marty Rathbun in case number 813-CV220-T27-TBM to be heard in the United States District Court, Middle District of Florida, Tampa Division. Luis A. Garcia Sass and wife Maria de Rocio Burgos Garcia, plaintiffs, versus the Church of Scientology Religious Trust and Church of Scientology Flag Service Organization, Inc. If counsel would please introduce themselves and whom they represent.
Bert Deixler, Kendall Brill, and Klieger on behalf of Flag Service Organization, Inc. I'm assisted by Sarah Heller. Let's have the persons present also identify themselves. Neil Levin.
Neil Levin. Ben Shaw.
Okay.
Hey, who do you represent?
Mr. Babbitt. Mr. Babbitt, are you on? Mr. Babbitt? Well, I'm told that Ted Babbitt is representing the plaintiffs in the case. He was on the phone. I can't tell whether he's still on or not. We had no response. I think it's time, however, for us to proceed. Can we begin by swearing the witness?
Would you raise your right hand, sir? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Rathbun. Mr. Rathbun, do you understand your testimony today is under oath and subject to the penalty of perjury?
Yes.
How did you prepare for your testimony?
First, I'm going to clear something up for the record. My name is Mark.
Hello.
My name is Mark Rathbun. M-A-R-K, not Marty.
Hello.
Marty is a nickname.
Hello.
Yes, hello.
Hi. The videographer's voice trailed off and then went blank. So I'm back.
Okay, we had introductions. Is this Mr. Babbitt again?
It is.
Okay, so Mr. Rathbun has just been sworn, and my question to him was, how have you prepared for your testimony? And he's about to answer. You're up to date.
Okay, let's just hang on just a minute, please. I need a number that I can call in case this happens again. And I was given the videographer's number, but when I called, the line was busy. So if you could ask the videographer, please, to whatever he's doing to his phone, clear it so that in case this happens again, I can notify you that I'm off the line.
Mr. Babbitt, this is Louis, the videographer. I believe my phone should be working, sir, and I do have it available.
Okay. I just called you when it went blank and it's busy.
All right, well, we'll hope for no further interruptions, and all will be well. Mr. Rathbun.
Is CSI a party in this case?
Yes. Tell me, if you will.
She said no.
Tell me.
She said no.
It doesn't matter. Mr. Rathbun,
It does matter because you have the legal executive for the Church of Scientology International sitting to your left, who also attends all of the hearings and depositions in my wife's lawsuit with that entity.
Sure.
So, who is here representing?
About whom are you speaking, Mr. Levin?
Mr. Levin.
Mr.
Yeah.
Levin is representing the ship, which is a party to the case. So let's
So
proceed.
I can't hear you guys. I know you're talking to each other, but I'd appreciate it if you'd either move the mic or talk a little louder.
He said that Neil Levin's representing the ship, though he's in the legal department for Church of Scientology International. And Mr. Schulman, is he here?
No, he's not.
Okay.
Okay, so let's get going. The question was, how did you prepare for your testimony, Mr. Rathbun?
I read my declaration.
And which declaration did you read?
My declaration in this lawsuit.
Okay, did you read anything else?
I read the declaration of Ken Weber. I think it's Ken Weber, whoever Mr. Weber was, who put a declaration for you all in this case. And I think I kind of skimmed over the Mike Ellis declaration.
Did you do anything else to prepare for your testimony?
No.
Okay. Did you speak with anybody in order to prepare for your testimony?
I spoke to Mr. Babbitt on Friday. I think it was Thursday, Friday.
And what did you say to Mr. Babbitt and he to you?
I said that, well, I asked him, you know, how the court would manage this deposition because of your client's history of abusing the litigation process, including your own, in an unethical and immoral fashion. How much would the judge keep this limited to the issues in this case? And he said that he made it pretty clear that it should be limited to the issues in this case.
What else did you discuss with Mr. Babbitt?
I think that's about it.
Okay, about how long did that conversation last?
Probably about 15 minutes.
Okay, you've told me everything that you can recall about the conversation you and Mr. Babbitt had on this past Friday, is that true?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, if you wanted to refresh your memory about anything else that was discussed by you and Mr. Babbitt on that occasion, to what, if anything, would you refer?
I would ask Mr. Babbitt.
You didn't make any notes of the conversation?
No.
Other than Mr. Babbitt, with whom have you spoken about the subject matter of your testimony?
About the subject matter?
Yes, sir.
Of my testimony, nobody.
Okay. Speak to Mr. Rinder about it?
No.
Okay. When is the last time you and Mr. Rinder discussed anything pertaining to this litigation?
Probably about the time I did my declaration.
Which declaration is that?
The declaration in this case.
There are two declarations in this case.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Have you brought with you some documents, sir?
Yeah, I brought the declaration somewhere. That's the Weber Declaration. Um, 19 April 2013.
The declaration which you refer to as having reviewed and which you have now in front of you is dated April 2013?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Let me, if I might, just take a look at it just to make sure we're on the same page. This is a document that appears to have been executed the 19th of April 2013 in Bulverde, Texas. Are we discussing the same document?
Correct.
Okay. And this was a document that you prepared, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Let me ask you, sir, do you agree with the notion that the fundamental precept of the Church of Scientology is that honesty is a critical element of an ethical life?
Absolutely not.
You don't agree with that?
No.
Do you ever represent that to anybody?
Yeah, I did in a declaration.
Okay.
And for Scientology.
And today you don't
Now
believe...
you're going to have to speak up. I can barely hear you. Put the mic closer to you.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, much better.
Okay.
And did you believe that it was critical to maintain the highest level of ethical behavior and to be completely honest in order to do well in life and to set an example for others?
Me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. You still believe that to be true?
Yeah.
Did you believe that during the time you were a member of the Church of Scientology?
Yeah.
How are you presently employed?
I buy and sell used material. I write. That's pretty much what I do now.
You buy and sell used material. What kind of used material?
The furniture.
Anything else?
Furniture's the main thing, but I go to auctions. I go to estate sales. I sell them. When I find a good bargain, I resell it.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. And what about your writing? What kind of writing do you do?
Written 3 books on Scientology.
Yeah.
And from time to time, I do writing assignments with online writing assignment deals where they pay you by the assignment.
I see. Are you employed by the media?
No.
Are you a freelancer for the media?
No.
Do you write articles about the Church of Scientology?
I haven't in some time.
You regard yourself as a critic of the Church of Scientology?
No.
Regard yourself as an enemy of the Church of Scientology?
No.
Regard yourself as an enemy of David Miscavige?
No.
Is that somebody you dislike?
Not necessarily.
Is that somebody you publicly criticized?
I publicly disclose facts about him.
You publicly criticize him, sir?
I don't know if you want to call it criticism. That's your characterization.
Have you likened him to famous criminals?
Perhaps.
You're not
It
sure?
would be a good. It would be a good. It would be a good analogy.
Mr. Miscavige was once your friend, correct?
So I thought.
And a good friend of yours, correct?
So I thought.
And a person who assisted you in your career. Is that also true?
Not necessarily.
You are.
No. Everything is about. There's no. David Miscavige doesn't assist anybody without a motivation, and so it was really a one-way flow. I actually helped him with his career.
You helped him, but he didn't help you.
Really. Yeah.
Okay. But so you don't have any ill will toward him, correct?
No.
Okay. You never, for example, likened him to Adolf Hitler. True?
Well, that's two different questions. Just your intonation makes it sound like it's two different things, and the answer to liken him to Adolf Hitler, absolutely yes.
Okay,
I have. But that doesn't connote hate or dislike. It just is what it is.
Now, what does that mean, sir?
You didn't understand what I said?
Right. That's why I asked.
Well, you probably had to read it back. I can't. I just said what I said.
Okay.
Pretty simple English.
How about Joseph Stalin? Did you liken him to Joseph Stalin?
Yeah. Yes.
Did you liken him to Ayatollah Khomeini?
Yes.
And what do you mean by those comparisons of Mr. Miscavige?
Oh.
If it doesn't mean dislike.
What it means is there's parallels in their behavior that are very direct.
When did you observe that Mr. Miscavige was to be likened to Adolf Hitler?
When did I what now? Can you repeat that question?
Sure. Madam Reporter, would you please read the question to the witness?
Question, when did you observe that Mr. Miscavige was to be likened to Adolf Hitler?
On and off between 1982 and 2004. More intensively between 2000 and 2004, and even more intensively in 2003 and 2004.
Would it be fair to say that during many of the times that you were with the Church of Scientology that you enjoyed your position?
I enjoyed my position?
Yes, sir.
I suppose so, yeah.
And you believed yourself to be among the leaders of the Church of Scientology?
Correct.
And there came a time when you were subject to discipline by the Church of Scientology. Is that true?
Incorrect.
Never disciplined by the Church of Scientology?
I don't know. Maybe not.
Okay. Let me try to get a sense of when you were with the Church of Scientology, when you left, and the like. Could you tell me briefly when you became a member of the Church of Scientology?
It was probably in September 1977.
Okay. And when did you cease being a member of the Church of Scientology?
Second week of December 2004, I would say.
Okay. And during this period from 1977 to 2004, tell us, if you will, briefly what positions you held.
Purchaser for a renovations project.
And what time period was the purchaser of renovations?
1978. I worked in L. Ron Hubbard external communication after that from 79 to 81.
And tell me what your responsibilities were when you were working for L. Ron Hubbard external communications, sir.
Responsibilities were to handle the communications to and from Hubbard's secret locations in such a fashion that he couldn't be tracked by process servers or the FBI or the media, or actually even any Scientologists, anybody.
Did you ever speak to Mr. Hubbard?
No.
Did you ever receive a writing from Mr. Hubbard?
I wasn't done with my answer, but so, I mean...
did you ever receive a writing from Mr. Hubbard?
What was that, Ted?
Let him finish his answer, please.
I thought he had.
He said he didn't.
I didn't. And that then morphed into doing the same thing for the Commodore's Messenger Org and its Watchdog Committee, which ostensibly took over management functions, or was attempting to take over management functions for L. Ron Hubbard, and to distance him from the unlawful activities of the Guardian's office and his wife.
Have you completed your answer?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever, you never spoke to Mr. Hubbard, is that correct?
That is correct.
You never spoke to him in person, on the phone, or in any other fashion, is that true?
That's correct.
Did you ever receive a writing from Mr. Hubbard directed to you, sir?
Yes.
Okay. On how many occasions?
I think twice.
Okay. What was the first time that Mr. Hubbard wrote something directed to you?
It was in 1978, late in, I think December or November, maybe even October. And he was instructing me to check out a particular type of paint to be used on the initial wave of renovations on what has now become the international headquarters of Scientology in Hemet, California.
Any other topic covered by the communication in writing from Mr. Hubbard to you other than the type of paint?
I think he wrote to me, but I can't be sure, but I think he wrote to me when I was at Author Services, when I worked directly for him in the early 80s, welcoming me to post at Author Services.
Okay. So 1978 you had a communication with him in writing that you've described, and in 1980 you had a communication with him, you believe, welcoming you to your post at Author Services. Is that right?
Correct.
Other than those two written communications, have you ever communicated with Mr. Hubbard in writing or orally?
No. Oh, I have not communicated. He hasn't communicated to me. I participated in many communications that went to him.
You transmitted communications to him?
I participated in many communications that were transmitted to him.
And how did you participate, sir?
Provided information, wrote parts of them.
Okay, we were going through your tenure at the Church of Scientology. You were up to about 1978.
Actually, I was up to 81. But,
from 1978 to 1981, were you with the external communications of LRH?
Yes.
Okay. And what happened in 1981?
In 1981, I got put on the special project, which was a project that was operated by David Miscavige and consisted of about 6 people, I think. And the purpose of it was to create an all clear for L. Ron Hubbard so that he could come to the international headquarters base in Hemet without fear of being served with process or being discovered by a reporter or being assassinated or being under any type of threat.
And what organization were you working for in 1981 when you were put on this special project?
I think it was Church of Scientology of California.
And how long did you serve in whatever capacity that was for the Church of Scientology, California?
Well, it morphed. Again, I was on that until January, I think, of 82, at which point it was referred to as special unit because Author Services was formed to set up a buffer between Hubbard and the church and the outside world. And so David Miscavige and several other people involved in his finances started a separate office. And myself and some others that were part of Special Project stayed doing the same function but calling ourselves Special Unit. And that went on from approximately January 82 until May of 84.
Okay. And so from January 82 till May of 84, you worked on what you described as the special project pertaining to the all clear for Mr. Hubbard. Is that correct?
Yeah, but we called it Special Unit from January forward And then we also, it was morphing too, so it was sort of, I mean, we were recreating the Office of we created the Office of Special Affairs, and it had a couple of different versions before we settled on that name in that period. And so, I don't know, I think sometimes I represented myself as the head of the legal department of the Church of Scientology, either of California or international, because we created a new corporation to try to shed the liabilities of the mother church.
You're the head of the legal department. Are you a lawyer, sir?
No.
Do you have any training, go to law school? No? Graduate from college?
No.
When did you become the head of the legal department?
Well, I just told you, it morphed over time. For all intents and purposes, really, January '82.
So January
Pardon me?
January 1982, you became the head of the legal department of one organization associated with the Church of Scientology.
Not really. I became the top person concerning legal and litigation and intelligence and PR for all of Scientology as of approximately January of 1982.
I see. Tell me what your responsibilities were in connection with the legal litigation duties that you had as the head of legal affairs.
Well, it was primarily it was to get L. Ron Hubbard the all clear, and it was to dispense with, see to the end of 2 outstanding grand juries that were looking into his connection to criminal activity, one in Tampa and one in New York, and to get rid of about 36 lawsuits that either named him or were part of this group of suits that did name him. That was duty number 1. That was always the top priority. Duty number 2 was to create this new organization to try to shed the legacy of the Guardian's Office, which had been the previous legal department, whose leaders had gone to jail, including L. Ron Hubbard's wife, Mary Sue Hubbard, for acts they had committed in harassing opponents. That was the second priority. And then 3 was to ferret out people who were in Scientology that had been Guardian's Office members who might, by the fact of remaining on staff within OSA and going with that transition, might create liability, either legal liability or PR liability in the future. So it was ferreting out, and Miscavige called it disbanding the Guardian's Office. And those were the 3 major objectives of that job.
Okay, and that was consumed your time fully during the time period from when you assumed the position until when?
Until May of 1984.
Okay. And what happened in May of 1984?
I got assigned to be the legal executive of Author Services Incorporated, which was L. Ron Hubbard's personal organization.
And did Author Services maintain and exploit Mr. Hubbard's trademarks in his fiction work?
I don't know about his trademarks. I think he assigned those to RTC to exploit, for the Church of Scientology to exploit, monitored by RTC. Although anything involving L. Ron Hubbard, again, these things morph. So you know, and it's difficult to pin it down, and it's that way by design. It's to keep everybody confused.
You were trying to confuse people during the time?
Not me. L. Ron Hubbard was.
I see.
And David Miscavige as his direct agent, and I was working for David Miscavige and L. Ron Hubbard.
Mr. Miscavige was your superior?
You know, effectively, Between January 1982 and when I left, he pretty much was my superior.
Pretty much? What do you mean by pretty much?
What I mean, again, because there's always this sleight of hand going on with the way the organization, it seems to have this very established permanency, to its structure and everything, but it just doesn't operate that way. I had nominal, from January 1982 until I went to Author Services in 84, I had nominal superiors, but David Miscavige controlled every action on my post.
From 1982?
I always answered directly to him. In 1984, when I went to Author Services, I had a superior, Lyman Spurlock, until 87. That period, I was there from May 84 until March of 87. But Lyman Spurlock never directed me or was responsible for my action. David Miscavige directly dealt with me.
Sure. So from 82 to 84, who were your nominal superiors?
Oh, God. Larry Brennan was for a while. Becky Hay was for a while, Hay. Steve Marlowe was for a while, Marlowe, I think, Marlowe, until 84. And then in 84, Lyman Spurlock. And Norman Starkey was for a while too. I mean, it's just, there was 4 different nominal superiors.
Okay.
Actually, probably more, but those were the principal ones.
I see. And when you say nominal, what do you mean by that?
Just like I said, you have this organizational structure. David Miscavige is at the top as the chairman of the board of Author Services. Lyman Spurlock is the deputy executive director for client affairs. The legal department's under him. I'm the head of the legal department. So Lyman is my nominal senior. And like I said, in a 3-year period, Lyman was in effect junior to me because litigation was hot and the top priority, as I told you, all clear. So David Miscavige dealt directly with me.
Mm-hmm. Did you think there was something unethical, improper, or dishonest about the structure of the organizations in which you were working during the time that you were a member of the church?
It's a difficult question because you justify everything so much, at the time. Otherwise you wouldn't do it. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. It was intended to but at the time it was, you just sort of intuit it, but I know it now after all this time has passed and I've done all my study and I know all the facts that I know now, that I think it was unethical.
Did you think you were
and immoral? Did
you think you were acting unethically?
At that time, no, because I was under the ethics system that, and this is the Scientology ethics system in a nutshell. If it forwards L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology, it's good. If it doesn't, it's bad. And so I was part of that ethics system, and therefore it seemed ethical at that time.
Did you think you had to be completely honest in order to do well in life and to set an example for others?
Me?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, on a certain level.
Was that one of the precepts by which you lived your life during the time you were in the Church of Scientology?
No, not really a precept. That kind of sums up my feelings, though.
Okay. So you were living an honest, ethical life during the time you were at the Church of Scientology. Is that fair?
No.
You weren't living a honest and ethical life at the time you were in the Church of Scientology, correct?
No.
Well, which is it?
It's not one of the two.
Explain to me what your view is.
You're not listening to me.
Of your honesty.
I don't think you're really listening to me because I just told you that at the time, and I'll repeat it again, at the time it seemed ethical because I was abiding by the Scientology ethics system. In the broader scheme of things, knowing all the facts I know today, it was not really ethical.
In May of 1984, did you get a new position at the church?
Yes.
What position was that?
Asked and answered, but legal executive author services.
Okay, and how long did you serve in that position?
until March of 1987, which I already told you.
And then in March of 1987, what was your next position?
Inspector General, well, missionaire actually, but I mean, I became the Inspector General for Ethics RTC.
And who appointed you to that position of Inspector General in March of '87?
David Miscavige.
And did you appreciate that responsibility?
No, matter of fact, I objected to taking the post. I didn't want to take it.
And how did you object? Was that in writing or orally?
Orally.
And to whom did you object?
Greg Wilhere.
Yeah. Anybody else?
May have to David Miscavige.
Okay. And notwithstanding your objections, you assumed those responsibilities?
Correct.
And what were those responsibilities, sir, starting in March of '87?
The first one was, Jesus, the probate, handling the probate of L. Ron Hubbard's estate, handling the IRS and getting exemption, manning up the Office of Special Affairs Network, which handles all their legal intelligence and public relations, manning up ethics officers, putting in a justice system, because it always been sort of a sham kind of system that didn't really effectively operate. In between '87 and approximately '92, while I was on that post, there was some semblance of operation, a justice system within the church. Surveilling Pat Broker, keeping an eye on him. That was part of the probate and the IRS concern. I did specific direct intelligence things for David Miscavige during that era that he thought were a particular threat to himself and the church.
Okay. From '87, starting in 1987, was it your view that there was no justice system in the Church of Scientology?
Starting in '87?
Yeah.
It was a sham, I said.
And when did you first believe that the justice system was a sham?
I didn't really believe it. It was just by observation. It was, and that was one of the reasons for the formation of my post.
So in 1987, as you understood it, your post was formulated for the purpose of putting into place a justice system, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That was one of the purposes.
And who put that responsibility upon you? Was that Mr. Miscavige as well?
L. Ron Hubbard.
Mr. Hubbard asked you to do that?
It was part of his, he had probably a file cabinet drawer full of what we call advices or directions for RTC, and that was one of them.
Okay. Was it directed to you personally?
It was directed to RTC.
Okay. Not to you personally, correct?
No.
Okay. So
And what we did was, is when we organized the place, we broke it into administration, ethics, and technology, which were the three sort of bodies of, you could assign all of the different things that Hubbard said RTC should do to those three things. And so that fit under the ethics one. So no, David Miscavige didn't particularly assign me to it. L. Ron Hubbard did.
Okay.
That was the whole basis of the organization.
So L. Ron, I try to follow this with clarity. L. Ron Hubbard, who never spoke with you and only wrote to you on 2 occasions, nevertheless gave you an assignment? Is that my correct
You're just playing
understanding?
word games right now. I said what I said. You're just playing word games.
How did Mr. Hubbard, who, as I understand from your testimony, was deceased, make an assignment to you?
Ted, do I have to tell him again? I already explained this.
Yeah, you guys are talking too fast. I interposed an objection just a moment ago about the repetitive nature, but I can't instruct you with what you can do.
Okay.
Answer the question, please. Mr. Rathbun, would you answer the question, sir? Madam Reporter, would you read the question to the witness?
You don't need to. I know what the answer is. I'm just contemplating what to do about this harassment. I'll humor you for a little longer. L. Ron Hubbard wrote a file cabinet drawer, approximately, full of written communications as to what RTC was to do. They broke down into 3 particular categories which have significance in Scientology: ethics, administration, and technology. The ones that had to do with the field of ethics got put under the Inspector General for Ethics.
Who put them under the Inspector General for
L.
ethics?
Ron Hubbard.
Okay. From 87 to 92, you served in this position of Inspector General?
'93, Inspector General for Ethics. There was 4 Inspector Generals. David Miscavige was the chairman of the board, and that title was chosen to give him sort of a quote-unquote arm's length from the day-to-day activity, although he always micromanaged all of the posts I'm about to tell you about. Then there was an Inspector General who was supposed to be the head of RTC, which was Greg Will here. Then there was an Inspector General for Ethics, which was me, an Inspector General for Administration, which was Mark Yeager, and an Inspector General for Technology, which was Ray Midoff, who nominally answered to Greg Will here as the Inspector General, who answered to David Miscavige, who was the chairman of the board. But it didn't really operate that way. That's how it was organized.
In what happened in 1993 that brought to an end your role as the Inspector General of Ethics?
Well, it actually began, these things morph, and it actually began in 1990 when David Miscavige took Greg Will here off post because he embarrassed him with Tom Cruise, which was the greatest offense that you could possibly commit in David Miscavige's eyes. He put his head on a pike, which is a Scientology vernacular for blaming something on somebody publicly and making a big show of it. And he put Greg Will here's head on a pike. And so that whole generation of that system really began in 1990. And I think he took Yeager off in 91-ish. And so by the time 91, 92 rolled around, it was already, the thing has sort of been torpedoed by David Miscavige, the whole structure. And so by that time, he was into this constant, we got to reorganize. And we had one organization for 3 years, and he was in a constant reorganization. And so it was difficult to say who was on what post.
Did you leave the church in 1993?
Yes.
Yeah. When was that?
1993.
When in 1993, sir?
In
Asked and answered objections.
October or November,
And how long were you gone?
9 days.
And your reason for leaving? I have the letter.
The reason for leaving was a recognition that David Miscavige was a complete narcissistic, psychotic personality that had absolute control, and that Scientology really, for him, was all about him, really. And that there was really nothing within my power I could do based on the way the whole system was set up to really change that.
And so you left for 9 days in October and November of '93, but you came back?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, my wife and Greg Will here, the Inspector General I referred to, were sent to my father's bed. He was dying of cancer in Southern California, and they went directly there and just basically held a vigil at his bed so that to win him over, to get me to talk to her and him, to Greg and Ann, who was my former wife. And they kept begging me to come back. So every time I called in, one of the reasons I left too was because I did want to spend some time with my father before he passed away, because he was chronic. And so Miscavige effectively handled that by just setting up a vigil at his bed. But I was going back east to see an old friend and to get some distance from them and to get my head clear. And I was riding my motorcycle. And ironically, what wasn't but 4 or 5 blocks from here, I stayed at the Days Inn just down the street on Houston Street here in San Antonio. And I called in home, and Greg Will here picked up the phone and spoke to me for probably 2 hours, begging me to talk to David Miscavige, who he said was distraught, crying, beside himself in shame for the way he had acted, and begged me to speak to him because he was really worried about Dave. And really, out of sympathy and compassion, I took the phone call.
Okay, so let me just understand this. You had formed the opinion as of the time you picked up the phone that Mr. Miscavige was psychotic, correct?
Pardon me?
As of the time you picked up the phone to have a phone call with Mr. Miscavige that you're about to relate, you had formed the judgment that he was psychotic, right?
I left because he was acting in a psychotic, narcissistic fashion.
And that was your view of Mr. Miscavige at the time, correct?
6 days earlier. And I had rode down my motorcycle in sub-50-degree weather all the way across the country from Los Angeles to here over 6 days. Yeah, 6 days earlier. That was one of the reasons why I was leaving.
Okay. And you still hold that view of him? He's psychotic, narcissistic, Hitlerian?
No, I don't still, no.
You've changed your view of him?
It changes and evolves all the time.
I see. What's your current view of Mr. Miscavige then?
Well, let's go back to '93.
Well, I was focused on the current, so I'll move to
No,
strike
you
your
didn't.
answers
I'll move to strike your question because you start. You're sending me way back to '93, and then you're trying to put words in my mouth, and I don't adopt them, and now you're trying to play word games. But you said he's this, and you said that. You want to hear the story? Then sit back and hear the story.
Mr. Rathbun, actually, what we're going to do is do it in a question-answer form. This is a proceeding that's in federal court.
What has this got to do with the refund policy of the church? What's this discovery is supposed to be about?
Would you tell me, sir, today whether it is fair to say that you have the view that Mr. Miscavige is psychotic and narcissistic?
I'm not done with my previous answer.
Please answer my question, sir. That was the question.
I'm not done with the previous answer.
Or are you refusing to answer this question?
I'm not done with the previous answer.
Finish his answer. Would you let him finish his answer? Then you can ask him the question. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Please answer my question, sir.
See, I think there's a different purpose for all this. Well, this will answer your question, I suppose, but you better get comfortable because I'm going to bring it from '93 up to the present because you're trying to whipsaw me and say because you thought something in '93 that is inconsistent because you didn't think it after 6 days on a motorcycle. After 6 days on a motorcycle and having been under the influence of Scientology, which that entire time you're trained to always look to yourself. What's wrong with you? And so that's sort of a constant, nonstop meditation that's going on during that entire period. So when I get to San Antonio, you know, I'm leaving my entire life behind. And I'm not in a good shape mentally or emotionally. And now I'm being told that this guy who acts like Adolf Hitler, Ayatollah Khomeini, and who was the third guy, Joseph Stalin, had some come to Jesus moment, which is astounding. Never in the history of all of Scientology, of all of the people that you want to interview or depose, who were defectors during any period of time ever witnessed anything like this. Nobody has, except for me. He was begging me to forgive him, begging me to meet with him. He said, I will fly to San Antonio right now. It sort of flabbergasted me, Bert.
Have you completed your answer?
Yes.
Okay, so my question was, your current view of Mr. Miscavige is that he is a narcissist and psychotic. Is that true, yes or no?
He acts in a narcissistic and psychotic way.
Let me
for sure. I mean, spending $50 million to try to destroy me and my family, I think that's pretty psychotic.
Let me mark as exhibit numbered 1 a multi-page, 10-page handwritten document. Ask you to take a look at it. And first, I'm going to ask you whether that is your handwriting, sir.
Yes.
And is this a letter that you wrote on or about November 30th,
I have to
1993?
I'd have to read it.
Why don't you take a moment and review that document, and I will ask you a few questions about it.
Yeah, I don't have that document. You haven't provided it for me before the deposition, so let's just take a break and let her fax it to me, and then we'll...
Actually, Mr. Babbitt, I was thinking, because it's handwritten and difficult to read, that I'm going to have Mr. Rathbun read the document into the record so we'll all understand his handwriting.
I'm not going to do that.
That's what I intend to have Mr. Rathbun do.
Then I intend not to do it, Ted. It's just completely frolic and detour intended to harass. Has nothing to do with any issue in this case.
You'll have to read the letter, or I guess we could call the judge.
I guess so. Let's do it.
All right.
Well, I'd like to see a copy of the letter. Would that be
Yeah.
possible, Mr. Reporter? Mr. Reporter?
So let me call your attention, since you're...
I was talking. I wasn't finished.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Question.
You know, I'm not quite sure how you can see a copy of the letter. I don't know whether documents have been produced.
We have these magic machines. They're called scanners. They can send in an email, or we can fax them. It's a modern, convenience that we have, and I think that can be done.
Yeah, and at an appropriate time, we'll, I guess, if it hasn't been produced, and I have no opinion one way or the other, I guess it can be produced. Mr. Rathbun, in the...
Fax me during a break. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah, we'll send it to you. I guess if it hasn't been produced, I'll inquire here as to whether it can be done. Mr. Rathbun, in this letter you wrote, am I correct that...
I'm trying to read it. You told me to read it.
Mr. Rathbun, Ms. Reporter, I'm suspending this deposition under the rules long enough to obtain a copy of that. Would we please take a break, get me a copy of it, and then we'll start again.
Well, I don't know that you're empowered to suspend the deposition, which is to proceed as
I
though
think
we
I
were...
am. I'm entitled to suspend the deposition and ask for a court hearing.
Okay, why don't we do
The
that?
easiest thing to do would be to just fax me a copy or email me a copy of that document.
Yeah.
It can take 5 minutes to do that.
I'm happy to do that if it hasn't been produced. As I said before, I'm not sure whether it has been produced or not.
Well, we don't have to argue about it.
It's not been produced. You would never produce something like this.
Mr. Rathbun, are you familiar with the documents that have been produced in this case?
I said would. It's a subjunctive. Scientology would never produce a document like this.
Let's take a short break. I will produce this document to you. I intend to inquire about it, and if Mr. Rathbun refuses to answer my questions pertaining to it, we will suspend the deposition.
I'm waiting for you to. I'm waiting for you to
give.
give a copy of the document to counsel for the other side, who called me as a witness, who said he's suspending the deposition until he gets it.
And then you'll answer questions about it. Correct?
Perhaps.
Okay. All right, we'll take a couple of minutes to try to get this document to you, Mr. Babbitt. And what is the number that we should use to try to send it to you?
561-684. Well, you can probably scan it and send it to me by email.
Please don't take the document. It's a court exhibit. Put the document down, Mr.
You want me to read the
Rathbun. I want you to sit here with the court document. Don't take a document out of the room. This is a court exhibit.
You said you
Please.
produced it.
Put the document down, sir. It is an exhibit in a district court proceeding. Do not leave the room. If you want to read it here.
Okay. Are we taking a break?
We're going to take a break. So you want us to try to scan it and send it to as a PDF? Is that your preference, or fax it?
Yeah, that's probably the easiest thing, but I can give you a fax number.
Why don't you, I'll see what is possible to do here. Why don't you give me the number and your email address?
561
Yeah.
684 6308.
I'm sorry, 6308?
Correct.
Okay.
561-684-6308. My email address is Ted, T-E-D, Babbitt, B-A-B-B-I-T-T, @babbitt-johnson.com.
Okay, let's see which of those two ways we can get it to you, and we'll take 5 minutes off the record. The record should reflect that Mr. Rathbun has completely walked out of the room after throwing Exhibit 1 on the table. off the record for a couple of minutes.
Time is 10:04.
Actually, I'm going to just keep it up.
Good morning. Today is December 22nd, 2014. The time is 9:14. We are on the record. I'm Louis Susi, the videographer. Our court reporter is Dicey Etchison. We are here in San Antonio, Texas for the deposition of Mr. Marty Rathbun in case number 813-CV220-T27-TBM to be heard in the United States District Court, Middle District of Florida, Tampa Division. Luis A. Garcia Sass and wife Maria de Rocio Burgos Garcia, plaintiffs, versus the Church of Scientology Religious Trust and Church of Scientology Flag Service Organization, Inc. If counsel would please introduce themselves and whom they represent.
Bert Deichsler, Kendall Brill, and Klieger on behalf of Flag Service Organization, Inc. I'm assisted by Sarah Heller. Let's have the persons present also identify themselves. Neil Levin.
Neil Levin. Ben Shaw.
Okay.
Hey, who do you represent?
Mr. Babbitt. Mr. Babbitt, are you on? Mr. Babbitt? Well, I'm told that Ted Babbitt is representing the plaintiffs in the case. He was on the phone. I can't tell whether he's still on or not. We had no response. I think it's time, however, for us to proceed. Can we begin by swearing the witness?
Would you raise your right hand, sir? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Rathbun. Mr. Rathbun, do you understand your testimony today is under oath and subject to the penalty of perjury?
Yes.
How did you prepare for your testimony?
First, I'm going to clear something up for the record. My name is Mark.
Hello?
My name is Mark Rathbun. M-A-R-K, not Marty.
Hello?
Marty is a nickname.
Hello?
Yes, hello.
Hi. The videographer's voice trailed off and then went blank. So I'm back.
Okay, we had introductions. Is this Mr. Babbitt again?
It is.
Okay, so Mr. Rathbun has just been sworn, and my question to him was, how have you prepared for your testimony? And he's about to answer. You're up to date.
Okay, let's just hang on just a minute, please. I need a number that I can call in case this happens again. And I was given the videographer's number, but when I called, the line was busy. So if you could ask the videographer, please, to whatever he's doing to his phone, clear it so that in case this happens again, I can notify you that I'm off the line.
Mr. Babbitt, this is Louis, the videographer. I believe my phone should be working, sir, and I do have it available.
Okay, I just called you when it went blank and it's busy.
All right, well, we'll hope for no further interruptions, and all will be well. Mr. Rathbun.
Is CSI a party in this case?
Yes. Tell me, if you will.
She said no.
Tell me.
She said no.
It doesn't matter, Mr. Rathbun.
It does matter because you have the legal executor for the Church of Scientology International sitting to your left, who also attends all of the hearings and depositions in my wife's lawsuit with that entity.
Sure.
So, who is here representing?
About whom are you speaking, Mr. Levin?
Mr. Levin.
Mr.
Yeah.
Levin is representing the ship, which is a party to the case. So let's
So
proceed.
I can't hear you guys. I know you're talking to each other, but
Can you hear me better now?
yes, much better.
Okay.
And did you believe that it was critical to maintain the highest level of ethical behavior and to be completely honest in order to do well in life and to set an example for others?
Me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. You still believe that to be true?
Yeah.
Did you believe that during the time you were a member of the Church of Scientology?
Yeah.
How are you presently employed?
I buy and sell used material. I write. That's pretty much what I do now.
You buy and sell used material. What kind of used material?
The furniture.
Anything else?
Furniture's the main thing, but I go to auctions. I go to estate sales. I sell them. when I find a good bargain, I resell it.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, and what about your writing? What kind of writing do you do?
Written 3 books on Scientology.
Yeah.
And from time to time, I do writing assignments with online writing assignment deals where they pay you by the assignment.
I see. Are you employed by the media?
No.
Are you a freelancer for the media?
No.
Do you write articles about the Church of Scientology?
I haven't in some time.
You regard yourself as a critic of the Church of Scientology?
No.
Regard yourself as an enemy of the Church of Scientology?
No.
Regard yourself as an enemy of David Miscavige?
No.
Is that somebody you dislike?
Not necessarily.
Is that somebody you publicly criticized?
I publicly disclose facts about him.
You publicly criticize him, sir?
I don't know if you want to call it criticism. That's your characterization.
Have you likened him to, you didn't make any notes of the conversation?
No.
Other than Mr. Babbitt, with whom have you spoken about the subject matter of your testimony?
About the subject matter
Yes, sir.
of my testimony, nobody.
Okay. Speak to Mr. Rinder about it?
No.
Okay. When is the last time you and Mr. Rinder discussed anything pertaining to this litigation?
Probably about the time I did my declaration.
Which declaration is that?
The declaration in this case.
There are 2 declarations in this case.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Have you brought with you some documents, sir?
Yeah, I brought the declaration somewhere. That's the Weber Declaration. Um, 19 April 2013.
The declaration which you refer to as having reviewed and which you have now in front of you is dated April 2013?
Mm-hmm.
Yes? Let me, if I might, just take a look at it just to make sure we're on the same page. This is a document that appears to have been executed the 19th of April 2013 in Bulverde, Texas. Are we discussing the same document?
Correct.
Okay. And this was a document that you prepared, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Let me ask you, sir, do you agree with the notion that the fundamental precept of the Church of Scientology is that honesty is a critical element of an ethical life?
Absolutely not.
You don't agree with that?
No.
Do you ever represent that to anybody?
Yeah, I did in a declaration.
Okay.
And for Scientology.
And today you don't
Now you're
believe...
going to have to speak up. I can barely hear you. Put the mic closer to you. Appreciate it if you'd either move the mic or talk a little louder.
He said that Neil Levin's representing the ship, though he's in the legal department for Church of Scientology International. And Mr. Schulman, is he here?
No, he's not.
Okay.
Okay, so let's get going. The question was, how did you prepare for your testimony, Mr. Rathbun?
I read my declaration.
And which declaration did you read?
My declaration in this lawsuit.
Okay, did you read anything else?
I read the declaration of Ken Weber. I think it's Ken Weber, whoever Mr. Weber was, who put a declaration for you all in this case. And I think I kind of skimmed over the Mike Ellis declaration.
Did you do anything else to prepare for your testimony?
No.
Okay. Did you speak with anybody in order to prepare for your testimony?
I spoke to Mr. Babbitt on Friday. I think it was Thursday, Friday.
And what did you say to Mr. Babbitt and he to you?
I said that, well, I asked him, how the court would manage this deposition because of your client's history of abusing the litigation process, including your own, in an unethical and immoral fashion. How much would the judge keep this limited to the issues in this case? And he said that he made it pretty clear that it should be limited to the issues in this case.
Yeah. What else did you discuss with Mr. Babbitt?
I think that's about it.
Okay. About how long did that conversation last?
Probably about 15 minutes.
Okay. You've told me everything that you can recall about the conversation you and Mr. Babbitt had on this past Friday. Is that true?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. If you wanted to refresh your memory about anything else that was discussed by you and Mr. Babbitt on that occasion, to what, if anything, would you refer?
I would ask Mr. Babbitt.